LeBron has definitely taken care of his kids. He has given them everything they've needed. Plus, I think that he's raised smart kids and great kids. I just think in this specific situation, this is very much a I thing versus a what's best for Bronny. Welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. Are you seriously drinking Diet Coke right now as I'm in the middle of our intro?
I just needed a little drink.
You are obsessed with that stuff.
I don't drink a lot of alcohol. I don't have a lot of vices. Diet Coke.
Yeah, but we're just starting the show.
Go ahead, start.
Welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. My name is Kyle, and as always, I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who needs to see an addiction therapist when it comes to Diet Coke, my dad, Tim.
Hey, everybody. Okay, enough about my addiction. I want to talk to you about a little something that happened this weekend.
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, we're going to talk about it.
My construction.
Was that what that was?
That's what it became.
What did I always teach you? Measure twice, cut once.
I can only measure 10 times.
Yeah, and you continue to measure, and you bought something far too big for the...
All right. Story time. I have a nice little coffee nook. I like it a lot. It came with the house. It was all built in, right? My wife decided we needed a little cabinet there, and she found it at IKEA that she absolutely loves. I'm a big fan of it as well. I think it looks really nice. So I measured 10 times to make sure this cabinet would fit. It said 55 and 1/8. I measured the back. I measured the middle. I measured the front. It fit perfectly.
No, it didn't.
I get the thing home, and it is an 1/8, not even a 16th of an inch too long.
Okay, the best part about this, while he was upset, I give him credit for saying, okay, I'm going to just plow through this.
Yep.
First, I'm going to sand it and get rid of the 16th of an inch.
I used the planer first. First, I'm like, whatever, it's wood. I got a planer.
No,
I use it to do...
It's particle board.
But I didn't know it was particle board. I started planing off the top part, and all of a sudden, I realized it's particle board. I've never worked with particle board before. I used my planer. We used the sander. I used a saw, went out and bought a Sawzall for this thing, and nothing would cut through the damn particle board.
No, and he kept saying, Dad, I only have to get rid of just this little bit. He needed to get rid of half of the one side of that cabinet.
It was so bad. It
was
so bad.
Dust everywhere.
It was awful. It was awful.
Dust was being tracked around the house. I said, why don't, it's 50 degrees. Let's take it outside and just do it there. Nope. He finally takes a chisel, gets it down.
The only thing that worked.
And we get it lifted in there. He's literally having to crawl underneath it because we have to lift it in. Then he starts to lay on the ground.
I sobbing
and trying to hold like a pretend little puppy. Make the bad man stop. You were a refugee from Sergeant Bilko.
Yeah. My inner Steve Martin definitely kicked in. I couldn't believe it. It took me a day and a half to get through this particle board. Pro tip: if you're messing with particle board, just don't. That's my big tip. Otherwise, a chisel is the way to go.
Okay, here's another tip. If you're buying from IKEA, they're from Sweden.
Right.
The measurements might not come out exactly the same. Buy something a full inch smaller than the opening you've got.
Also a good tip. Now I know. It's in now. It looks great. It looks amazing.
It does.
I give my wife credit. It looks unbelievable in there. But holy buckets, that was a pain in the butt.
It was fun to watch.
It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. I think it's time we get on with the rest of the show. I don't
do
want to
too.
relive this nonsense. Before we get started, I need to ask you guys to do one thing, which is to follow the instructions right here. Other side. I've been so good with this. The other side, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you're on Spotify, follow us on Spotify as well.
That
Let's
kind
get
of
into it.
That kind of explained the construction, though, when you're going from one side and it's really on the
Dude,
other.
I'm so all over the place still. This has wrecked my brain, I think, for the rest of the week.
So, what did you think about the madness in Madison?
The Michigan Madness. Yeah, that was interesting.
It was, we've talked about sportsmanship for years and years and years. I taught you the lessons I learned from John Paulus, who was my tennis coach, who said if you've got somebody hooking calls, it's not their problem, it's yours.
Let's get into
what farther in.
Let's get into what happened. So, there's like 15 seconds left in the game, right? It's in the Kohl Center, which is a pit.
Yeah.
Like, you don't win in the Kohl Center. I mean, Bo Ryan? Yeah, Bo Ryan won like 4 games, or lost like 4 games at the Kohl Center the entire time it's been there. It's just a pit. You don't win there.
Right.
Michigan's down by 15, and Greg Gard decides that he's going to call a timeout.
Well, wait a minute. Michigan was pressing.
Right. Michigan was pressing because that's what you do. You teach your kids you don't give up till the last whistle blows. That was an opportunity for Gard to teach his kids, listen, you may have 4 seconds. I don't care if they're bench players or not. They're going to be your starters. You don't call a timeout with 15 seconds left to get yourself extra time to get the ball over when you're up by 15 points.
No, it's like the unwritten rules of baseball. And what has been amazing to me is all the different people defending one side or the other. They were both at fault.
They were definitely both at fault. I agree. Juwan Howard never should have said anything, but if you look at the reference from Harry Potter, right? You and I were talking about this earlier, right? What was it, the 5th book where
something like
Umbridge was in it? I'm going to get super nerdy for a second here. But all of a sudden they're in the Quidditch match, right? Mm-hmm. And Malfoy starts giving crap to Harry and to the Weasley kids after he lost and goats him into attacking, right?
Right.
And what did the teacher say?
Professor McGonagall looked at him and said, what did you expect him to do? He lost.
Correct. And this is the same situation here. He said that was BS, right? He said that was BS as he's walking off the court. All Gard has to do is be the bigger person at this point and keep walking. Should Howard have said anything? No. But all he had to do was keep walking. And then Gard decides to grab his arm and get some Napoleon complex and get in his face about it. And all you're doing is instigating a guy who's already upset at the fact that he lost.
Right. Look, Howard needs to be suspended for the rest of the season.
Yeah, the regular season.
Gard should be suspended for a game as well.
He escalated it. He didn't start it, but he 100% escalated it.
Absolutely. And what really bugged me is I saw some of the interviews after the game. They were defending their actions instead of looking at the cameras and going, you know what, we've got to be bigger than this.
Correct.
We shouldn't have gone down this road. I saw Seth Greenberg's comments today, and he said, look, number one, both coaches should have just focused on their own team.
Yep.
Gard should have let Howard, press if he wants to, and Howard should have just let Gard do what he was going to do.
Right.
Both coaches coach their own team and be done with it.
Right.
But that's not what happened.
You're the leader of men. I mean, if this is how you're acting like children, I mean, you're not going to get your kids to follow you. I mean, if I'm watching this, I'm not sending my kids to go and play there because I'm not going to have my kids play for either team when they're children.
And that handshake, I know there was a suggestion that the handshake could go away. Absolutely not.
Be a bigger person. This handshake is to say good game. It's what you do. It's how I teach Grayson to play football, right? We'll go in the backyard, and I tell him to plow me over. I said, I don't care who you're playing. You hit hard. Because he was being slow about it. I said, no, you hit. You get in their face. That's part of the game. But as soon as you get up, you say good game. And we do it every time. If he knocks me over, I get up, I say great hit, good game. If I knock him over, I make him get up and say good hit, good game.
It's like I taught both you and Ryan, if you've got somebody hooking calls, hit your shot farther in, and after the game, you go over and you say good game.
Right.
Integrity counts more than any game.
Right. That should have been for Howard, a who cares we lost, and it should have been from a Greg Gard realizing, listen, emotions are hot. Howard's had a tough season. He took a good Michigan team and has just tanked this year. And it's his first year as a head coach. All that stuff goes into it. But again, to go back to the Harry Potter reference, like what do you expect somebody to do that just lost?
They're going to lash out. And, Gard's getting ready for the tournament. They've got a great team. Johnny Davis is outstanding. But what did you just teach Johnny Davis?
Right.
Here's a kid who's done spectacularly well. He's got to rise above when bad things happen because he's going to get cheap shotted in the tournament. You better plan on it.
He is, and you just showed him that when people get in my face, I get back in theirs. It's not like you're defending your kids here.
No.
Bobby Knight, whenever he got into somebody's face, 9 times out of 10, it was defending his own team. Right? It's a different situation. Greg Gard, you're not defending anybody. You're not defending your kids. You are allowing a upset grown adult to get under your skin to the point that you grab him on the arm and escalate a situation.
Right. And again, Howard looked at him and apparently said, I'm going to remember this. Gard should have just walked away and said, okay, we'll see you next time.
Right. Remember it. Great.
Yeah. It was pathetic on all sides. Do I think Juwan Howard should be fired, as some people have suggested?
No.
Absolutely not. I mean, that would be carrying things way too far. He threw. I heard somebody today say that he munched the guy's face because I don't think he threw a punch.
Open hand. He shouldn't have swung it. Somebody laid hands on him. Again, it was in the heat of a moment. You have a guy who's already upset at the fact that he lost. You have Greg Gard escalating the situation, and it escalated to points it didn't need to. Both people needed to be bigger. But again, what did Juwan Howard say? I'll remember this.
What it does, though, is it takes two formerly very classy organizations, and it makes people go, not so classy.
I mean, that doesn't happen with Bo Ryan being there.
No, it doesn't.
Off the court. It doesn't happen with Coach K. It doesn't happen with any of it. It doesn't happen with Bobby Knight. It might have happened, but again, it's what lesson is that teaching your kids at this point?
And I've heard Bobby Knight be brought up several times today by different people, going, "Well, this has gone on for years. Look at what Bobby Knight did." I'll say this about Bobby Knight: he had the backs of his players not only while they were in school, he made sure they graduated,
right?
But he was there for them after school as well. We were talking about the one player that he had that had a substance problem,
right?
And his family had tried to get him into help over and over and over again. And as a last desperate hope, he'd been out of school for quite a while. They called Coach Knight. Coach Knight said, "I'm there." He flew in, got there the next day, and when that kid walked into the house, he knew it was serious.
Yep. That's when he knew he had a problem, because if Bobby Knight's going to show up, you got a problem. And again, Coach K's that way as well.
Sure.
I think Nick Saban's very much that way with his players.
Barry Alvarez always was.
Yep.
The good ones always remember their players.
Mac Brown is definitely one of those guys. So you definitely have good coaches out there, and then you have the Urban Meyers of the world, which
right. And this makes you question what kind of people Greg Gard and Juwan Howard are off the court. I think Howard is there for his guys. He was a player. He gets it. He was a player at the highest levels.
I think Juwan Howard is a rookie head coach who is not used to having the emotions of a head coach, because he hasn't gone through any of the ranks, right? He was just thrown right into it. And so he's not used to that side. He's used to being a player, and players will get in your face for that type of stuff. But you can't do that as a coach. And I think this is a lesson for him. He definitely shouldn't be fired. He definitely should be suspended. Greg Gard's been through the ranks.
And Greg Gard should be suspended. I think Howard coached last year, if I'm not mistaken, because he had an incident with Maryland.
Yes.
As they were going. So he's a second-year coach. But Gard should have known better. And, you know, this crap I heard where he goes, well, when I shake hands, I always grab the guy's arm. When you've got a hot guy, walk away. I think it was Kendrick Perkins was another guy I saw today. He goes, when a guy says, don't touch me, take him at his word and don't touch him.
Right.
It was just a bad look altogether.
Right. And when I say rookie head coach, not that this is his first year, I just mean that this is his first action as a coach, you know, really ever, right? He hasn't done it before. So he has second year. He's still in that rookie phase, though, where he's really learning the ropes. And again, Greg Gard's been there. He got a Napoleon complex and just got into a guy's face and escalated a situation. Both coaches were in the wrong. For recruiting side of things, if my kids are in those recruiting realms right now and I had them looking at Michigan or Wisconsin, I'm all of a sudden second guessing these choices.
Right. I mean, you've got to look at the players. I think both are good schools. They're great schools.
Right.
And this is hopefully will be a blip, but I think the NCAA, and I honestly think Michigan is going to get way ahead of this and way ahead of the NCAA. I think Howard is suspended by tonight.
I'm sure he is. Again, he shouldn't be fired.
No.
He definitely shouldn't lose his job over this. People are allowed to have emotions. Same with Greg Gard. He's allowed to have those emotions. We're all only human, and we need to start remembering that when we see this stuff. These are people with emotions. They just got over a heated game.
But I'm going to come back to this. Greg Gard should not have called that timeout at that point. Your guys have to figure out how to get the ball up in 4 seconds, even against a press. There's few seconds left in the game. You're up by 15.
Right.
Let's go on to the next game.
Well, that whole thing, they're my bench, and, I don't want to put them in that situation. They're Division I basketball players. This is a learning experience for them. These guys are going to be your starters at some point. There's no better time to teach them this lesson. You're up by 15 points. What's the worst thing that happens is there's a turnover and they score a basket and then you get your 10 seconds left.
Right.
I mean, it's not like you have money on the spread or anything like that and you're trying to hold it.
We hope.
That we know of, right? But that's the only reason that you call a timeout in that situation is because you're trying to keep the score the way that it is.
And we're not suggesting that there was any betting.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. I'm just throwing theories out there like, why do you call that timeout? That was dumb.
Again, I come back to the unwritten rules of baseball. You don't bunt when you've got a 10-run lead, and in this case, you don't call a timeout when you've got a 15-point lead, no matter what the situation is.
Right.
They're not going to come back. So I think we've exhausted that little situation. I will say, though, and just to finish this off, going back to what I taught you guys, what you teach your kids, parents from little kids on up have got to start teaching sportsmanship again because I just don't see it anymore. Hockey has done this for generations. They shake hands after the game. I read the history of it. It dates back to the 1920s, and hockey is as brutal as you get. But if we expect our kids to act like responsible adults, we got to hold them to a higher standard than I think they are right now. One of the worst things that's happened is the helicopter parents. You do not need to be there for every game. Let the kids play their own games and figure it out.
Well, I think the biggest thing is how many times have people said no more participation trophies, but being part of that generation where participation trophies started, right? As a kid, I never wanted them. Right? That meant nothing to me. But we need to get away from that and teach kids, listen, you're going to lose. You're not going to get credit for some of this stuff. You still get back up and you shake hands. There's been times where between my two boys, right? One hits the other, and all of a sudden I hear, he hit me. And I say, all right, hit him back. and it makes the kids stop.
Right. Because
it makes them think, is this really something that's worth it to actually start something? And 9 times out of 10, they say, well, no, I'm not going to hit him back. Okay, then it's not that big of a deal. And then there's that 1 out of 10 times where I do have to step in, but that's all right. But it's that type of lesson that I love teaching my kids, and I think it's going to help them a lot as time goes on. It's a lesson you taught me when I was growing up. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get pushed down. That's life. We've all been there.
Life's not fair. And I think
It's not fair at all.
that's in the age that you grew up in. I don't care if there were participation trophies or not. We kept score because you're going to win sometimes. And it's just as important to win with grace as it is to lose with dignity.
Right.
And those are lessons I think have been forgotten. We've got to bring them back into society because, it's important to know that you're not always going to be on the winning side of things.
Right.
And you aren't even going to get a participation trophy. Sometimes you're just going to be left out.
Right. It happens. And, I definitely like the new age parenting now where, you pay more attention to the kid's emotion in the situation, right? That's a big thing now. And I think that is important. I think it's a great learning lesson. But you guys always paid attention to that when we were kids. You and Mom were definitely ahead of the curve because if you saw me upset, the question was why. I think that's great.
Right.
But the answer was sometimes, well, it sucks that you feel that way. It is what it is. Get over it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just the answer.
Well, and you remember the big thing we had with the school one day where your brother Ryan, little brother, who's now taller than you,
yes, by a few inches,
had a guy pick on him who was from I think he was 4th grade and Ryan was in kindergarten, and guy took his glasses. Well, Ryan turned around, and at that age, he grabbed him and he put him into the wall, and the guy ended up with broken glasses of his own, which, really always kind of surprised me. I got a call from the school, and my first question was, did Ryan start it? No. He finished it. And I said, that's fine. I've told them, never start a fight, but if somebody starts one with you, right, you can finish it.
Well, it's the same thing, honestly, in my opinion, when it comes to the Michigan-Wisconsin game, to bring it back a little bit, is, who did start that? Did the person who said, I'll remember this, start that? Or was it Greg Gard that literally grabbed him and got into his face?
If just saying, I'm going to remember this is starting a fight, then we've got to get some anger management for Greg Gard.
At some point, sticks and stones.
Right.
And we got to stop judging by what people say, right? It's not about what you say, it's about what you do. Always a golden rule.
Yes, it is.
You're allowed to say, I'm going to remember that. Do you know how many times when I was playing, especially playing tennis, how many times people got in my face and I got in theirs?
Sure.
I was very much a John as you remember, I was very much a John McEnroe characteristic when it came to tennis. I was an angry young kid for a little bit there. But again, afterwards, I'd go out and hang out with those guys I played tennis with. It was in the heat of the moment and you understood it.
Yes.
And it's the same thing here.
So let's talk about another father-son thing.
Yeah.
LeBron James announces that he's going to continue to play until he can play with his son. That struck me as just putting more pressure on any kid than any kid should have to ever be put under.
It's a lot of pressure for a kid, man.
Because what is he? The kid's not even in high school. He's still in high school, correct?
Still in high school. He'll either be a one and done or straight to the NBA. It's doing two things. One, it's putting pressure on the GMs to be like, listen, draft my kid, which is, that's fine. You're taking care of your kid. You're getting him a big contract. I think that's a good fatherly thing to do to help out. But
if the kid is good enough.
And he is. I mean, this kid's really good.
Okay.
But it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of unneeded pressure on a kid who's just trying to find their own way. You're living. It's not like Steph Curry and Seth Curry coming into the league, right? Where their dad was a great player and had a great career, or Griffey's dad who had a great career, right? But they weren't generational players like LeBron James is. LeBron James will go down as one of the greatest players of all time.
He's going to be on that Mount Rushmore.
And you're setting your son to come up, and there's no way Bronny can live up to that. It just can't happen.
No, I mean, we talked about the Griffeys. Ken Griffey Jr. had come up. He went to Seattle. He was making his own name, and then there was a chance, and Ken Griffey Sr. said, hey, I'll go over there and play, but there was never anything about the dad being there to show the kids the ropes,
Right.
or he didn't get him that job. Griffey Jr. is one of the few occasions where the kid is on that Mount Rushmore. I always talk about the little room in the Hall of Fame with the greatest of the greats. Griffey Jr. is in that room.
Yeah, Griffey Jr. is probably the head of that room.
Right.
I mean, I think he's arguably the greatest player of all time. In my opinion, he is the greatest player of all time.
Certainly the greatest player of your generation.
Oh, it's not even close. Not even close. And exactly, though, to your point, like there was no conversation, draft my kid and I'll come play too. There was nothing like that. It was, listen, you want to go into the league, go into the league. Have fun. And then there was an opportunity where his contract was up and he's like, I really just want to go and play with my kid. I'm going to go to Seattle. And he went. And that was the end of it. But to say, draft my kid and I'm going to come and play for you.
And the Griffeys had the greatest father-son moment in the history of sports, I think, where
back to back.
Griffey Sr. hits a home run. Griffey Jr. steps up and goes back to back. As you said, you're never going to see that again. I just can't help but think the pressure on Bronny could hurt his career.
Yeah, it could. I mean, so you and I have a prime example of this in our careers, in our lifetime. You were working for a company and, I had just lost my job. My wife was 3 months pregnant at the time. The company I was working for went out of business. Situation that just happened, right? I needed to get a job. And so, the company you worked for down in Florida had an opening and you helped me get an interview.
But that's all I did.
But then the rest was on me. I went in there and I got the job and I had to live up to that. But one thing you did that was awesome is nobody knew that we were related in the company. Like if they asked us, we didn't hide.
Sure. But I was never, it goes back to my dad, actually. I found a story that my mom wanted me to name me after my dad. And my dad said, no, he's not going to have to live up or down to my first name. And when you came to the company we worked for, it was that. It was like, if anybody asked, said, do you know this person? It was like, yeah, we're related. It's my son or it's my dad.
Right.
But we very much made it. You made it on your own. I made it on my own. And we didn't need to add that extra pressure on there. I certainly was never going to go to somebody and go, you must hire him, which is what LeBron essentially is doing right now.
Right. It was never that thing. It was, hey, let me see if I can get you an interview, and then we'll go from there. And like I said, it worked out. But to say, listen, I'm going to draft you, I can't imagine ever doing that to my kid.
I can't either. And, and if LeBron is still with the Lakers, I know he's got a lot of control, but
well, his contract's up. He structured it specifically so his contract will be up when Bronny gets drafted, so he'll be a free agent and go anywhere.
That's just, if I'm an organization, I know I'm getting the package deal, and if Bronny is that good, great, I'll want him on the team later on. But do I want to carry LeBron for that year? Maybe not at that point.
Well, and what if he comes in? Look what happened with Alonzo Ball.
Yeah.
When he came in, right? There's so much pressure to just perform right away.
Those kids are never lived up to the hype. And that's what it was. It was all hype.
Well, LaMelo has.
Yeah, he has. And
everybody knew that he would.
He was the most skilled of the three.
The other two have had to try and live up to hype that was created, and good for their dad for creating that for him to get him there. But I mean, they struggled under that hype. And now you have a situation where the greatest player of a generation, one of the greatest players of all time, is hyping you up in that way. I mean, you're not going to protect your kid in the league.
No, and he's got to make it or break it on his own, and he should be given that shot. If it was like the Griffeys and Bronny was drafted by the Bucks, for example, and LeBron then called the Bucks and said, hey, look, I'd like to play with Bronny the second year. And the Bucks said, sure, it'll help us sell tickets. You'll be a nice addition on the bench. We still have Giannis. That's one thing. But to announce it, that's a bridge too far as I'm concerned.
It's heart in the right place. from dad to dad, I can definitely see where he's coming from in trying to help his son. I really do. And I can also see where he's coming from as a father saying, listen, this is going to mean everything to me. This playing with my son for my final year would be the greatest feeling in the world.
But if I'm Bronny, I'm looking at him going, Dad, I've got to do this on my own. Back off. Let me make my own name. You've done your thing.
It's a catch-22. It's a catch-22. Do I think by any means he's done anything wrong? No. Because that would be a dream for me. I'm sure that would have been a dream for you as well.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, like, this isn't about you, right? This isn't about LeBron. This is about Bronny at this point and what's good for him. And is you going to that team and making that announcement really good for him and his career and his psyche going forward?
There's a point in time where you can put so much pressure on somebody that it hinders their growth. Do I think it will hinder his growth? I don't know, but I wouldn't want to be in Bronny's shoes where my dad has said that. It'd be like if Michael Jordan would have done that if his kid had been that type of a player.
Yeah.
Or Kareem's. I don't even know if Kareem had a son, but one of those guys. I just
don't. Any of the greats did it.
Right.
Like, it's just not something you do. And again, it's amazing for LeBron, and I think that's where his mind's at. Is this is something I want to do, and that's been LeBron's career for a long time. Is this is something I want to do?
It's an I thing and not a team
very
thing.
much. And I'm not a great parent by any means. I figure it out as I go along. This isn't some parenting lesson. Like, I know best. I don't know anything about being a dad. I figure it out day to day, just like everybody else. Just try and make sure my kids are healthy, well taken care of, and emotionally ready to go into the world when they're older. That's my job. So I'm not the person to sit here and say, and LeBron has definitely taken care of his kids. He has given them everything they've needed. Plus, I think that he's raised smart kids and great kids. I just think in this specific situation, this is very much a I thing versus a what's best for Bronny coming into this league.
By the way, he is a great dad.
I appreciate it.
You can run it down, but he is an awesome dad. And yes, LeBron he is a very, very smart guy. He's done great in business. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens down the line. I don't envy Bronny's situation in this regard. If I'm him, let me go make it on my own.
Right.
So, and I think most kids are like that.
And that's the trick, it's tough. It really is. And taking anybody into your own business is hard with that. But you brought up something that would be an interesting thing to see is what if the Bucks are in a position to draft Bronny?
From what I've heard of him, draft him all day long. Get him on the team.
You have Giannis will still be there,
right?
We're talking 23, 24 when he
I think
comes to the league.
I think Giannis is going to be a Buck for life, or at least I hope he is.
Yeah, I do too, and I think he will be. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think the Bucks at this point have proven, hey, we're going to build around you. This is your team. We're going to do what it takes. Right. But can you imagine LeBron James and Giannis? I mean, LeBron James is tapering off, and LeBron James needs to play second fiddle to somebody at this point. If he's going to continue to be successful, he's going to have to play Robin to somebody else's Batman. I don't know if he'll be able to do that, but that's what he'd have to do.
Well, here's my question, though. In that situation, you draft Bronny. You know LeBron's coming. What's he going to dictate? Is he going to say, well, no, my kid's got to be out there playing. We're going to talk minutes and whatever, and they've got to be on the court at the same time. There's a whole can of worms that's going to come along with
that
this.
Needs to be a discussion before anything ever happens. Honestly, I didn't even think about that. And that's one thing if you're with the Sacramento Kings, right? Or another team that's not playing well.
The Timberwolves.
Timberwolves. That's a different story. But if Bronny comes in and gets drafted by a championship level team, for whatever reason, the Bucks hopefully are never in a position to have a top 10 pick at that point where that's going to happen. But if it does and he comes into a championship team, is he going to be able to dictate those minutes?
He's going to try because that's LeBron's history. I mean, he brought Westbrook to the Lakers. He's played GM no matter where he's gone. if I'm the coach of that team, I'm just like, what are you doing to me?
Right.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be very, very tough.
Be fun to watch.
It would be fun to watch. And again, if LeBron's willing to play, and I think that's what it'll take, honestly, is in this situation, a Giannis to be there where, listen, this isn't your team.
Right. Yeah.
They tried it in Miami. It didn't work, right? It became LeBron's team and Dwayne Wade willing to step back, which shows how great of a teammate he is.
Mm-hmm. But LeBron's 38, something like that now. It's a whole different scenario.
It is, and he's not able to carry the teams like he used to. I mean, when he first came in the league, he carried a team where the second best player was Mo Williams. No knock on Mo Williams, but he was not a Hall of Famer, not an All-Star player by any means.
Right.
And he carried that team deep into the playoffs.
He's not going to be able to do that anymore. I don't know if Bronny's going to be that same type of generational athlete that his dad was.
He's got room to grow. He's 6'3" now. I mean, so he's got time to catch up to his dad by all means, and height-wise. It's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. A lot of pressure to put on a kid. And I just don't know if I would ever do that.
You know, you look at great players like Steffi Graf and Andre Agassi.
Yeah.
They've got kids. They didn't let their kids play tennis. Or at least get into that competitive because they didn't want to put them under that pressure.
Right.
And I think, like in our case, I don't want you to have to live up to what I do or live down to what I do. You make it on your own. And I think that's the best thing you can do as a parent is let the kids make it on their own and build their own future.
I agree. The question is, and this is where I need comments below here, is what situation would be best for Bronny to be drafted in? Because his dad's coming with him, right? You know that's going to happen. So what situation? Is it a Milwaukee Bucks team which has its own superstar, which already has their own success, and Bronny's able to come in and LeBron's able to come in and they're just able to sit back and have a superstar in his prime? Or is it best for them to go to a Sacramento Kings or a Detroit Pistons where they get to run the show? They get to dictate minutes, and Bronny's automatically the star because his dad's there with him.
I want to see the comments below.
I mean, what do you guys think? Place
your vote. Go to a great team or go to a rebuilding team.
What's best for Bronny in his own career?
I can see him going to the Knicks, to that, rather than Detroit. You're going to put him in a big city.
Can you imagine that circus?
Oh, God, that would be ridiculous with that owner being not a great owner to start with, and then you put that circus on there as well.
You put Bronny and LeBron on the Knicks?
P.T. Barnum's dream come true.
Oh, my God. I would feel so bad for that kid.
Well, we're going to find out. So
we are going to find out. Some interesting topics, but I think the big thing that comes into this, right? LeBron's trying to do what's best for him, and I think in both the situations we talked about today, from the father-son aspect, is there's lessons to be learned in both of these situations. And in the Michigan Madness or Michigan Mayhem or Madison Madness, whatever you want to call it, I mean, that was clearly Juwan Howard being a sore loser and Greg Gard not reacting the way he should have.
Greg Gard needed to be a gracious winner at that point. And here's another question. Which way do you want to see your kids? Would you want your kids to go and play for Michigan or for Wisconsin based on what happened in that? Let us know in the comments, because this is a show where we need your comments to help us grow the channel.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is no. I don't. I pull my kids right out of there, and they're not allowed to go and play. Not for Michigan and Wisconsin after that. I don't want them playing for either one. Clearly, their head coaches are children who don't know how to behave in public.
I want them to play for a guy who's going to go to war with them, but after the game is over,
it's a good game.
You're going to look at them and go shake their hand.
Right. You don't get to sit here and pout. You're going to shake their hand.
Yeah. And
I agree. And the LeBron thing, it's his heart's in the right place. I don't think he's doing anything wrong. I just think he's more in an I situation versus a hey, what's best for Bronny situation.
Oh, look, if I was that kind of an athlete and you were that kind of an athlete, of course I'd want to play with you. But hopefully I temper it with, you know what, he deserves the right to do it on his own.
And you and I definitely aren't.
No, we're
type of athlete.
We are definitely not, especially on a basketball court.
I am definition of white boy that can't jump when it comes to basketball. I can hit a tennis ball, but that's about it.
Yeah, to put a round orange ball in a round hole 10 feet above is beyond me. Let me try to get. I do better with a baseball and with a tennis ball, and I think I can still beat you on a golf course.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I almost had you last year.
All I know is I want the weather to warm up so we can get out and play again. And we've got a golf show we've got to go to. But
we do. Yeah. We have golf shows coming up, and we got golf in. It's going to get real because there's some bets. I'm my third year into playing golf now. And so the bets are about to get real because he's old now, and I'm going to take advantage.
You can outdrive me. I will grant you that.
I learned how to hit the ball straight, which is really exciting.
Okay, you don't hit the ball straight. You hit it a long way, but it's not always straight.
It's getting there.
Yeah, you're working on it.
It's better. We'll figure it out. But I think we've had a lot of fun today. I think it is time to wrap this up. Before we head out, any last things you want to say?
Met somebody very interesting over the weekend that I want to talk about on the next show. I met one of the guys that's still alive that played in the Negro Leagues. Fascinating conversation and a great guy.
You told me some amazing stories about it, and I'm extremely excited to hear about it when we drop a new show on Thursday. Every Tuesday and Thursday, you will get new content from us. So do me a favor and follow the instructions right here, which I did the right way that time. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can get notified every time we drop a new show, so you can enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify, which is linked below. Thank you so much for joining us again. We will see you next time. This has been Sports Talk with Dad.
Bye, everybody.